Hello everyone. Today we are going to see how to interpret arterial blood gases using tic-tac-toe method. Arterial blood gas is the test which measures the pH, the amount of oxygen and carbon dioxide, acid-base balance and oxygen saturation in the arterial blood. Now let us see about the components of arterial blood gases and their normal values. Arterial blood pH indicates the amount of hydrogen ions in the blood. The normal range is 7.35 to 7.45. PCO2 is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide dissolved in the blood. The normal range for PCO2 is 35 to 45. PO2 is the partial pressure of oxygen dissolved into the blood. Normal range is 75 to 100. Bicarbonate helps to prevent the pH of blood from becoming too acidotic or alkalotic. The normal range is 22 to 26. Base excess is the amount of acid required to restore a liter of blood to its normal pH and at a PCO2 of 40 mmHg at the temperature of 37 degrees centigrade. The normal range for base excess is -2 to +2. SiO2 is the oxygen saturation which measures the amount of oxygen carried by the hemoglobin in the red blood cells. The normal range for SiO2 is 94 to 100%. The key components needed for ABG analysis are pH, PCO2 and HCO3. It is very important to familiarize with the normal and abnormal ABG values to review the ABG results. It is easy to memorize all these values. Note that here PCO2 is intentionally inverted here for the purpose for the tic-tac-toe method. As you can see, the range of 7.35 to 7.45 of pH is considered as normal. Less than 7.35 is considered as acidotic. Greater than 7.45 is alkalotic. And at PCO2 values, the normal range is 35 to 45. Less than 35 is considered as alkalotic and greater than 45 is considered as acidotic. On bicarbonate value, the normal range is 22 to 26. Greater than 26 is considered as alkalotic and lesser than 22 is considered as acidotic. As you can see here, PCO2 represents respiratory or otherwise the lungs. HCO3, that is bicarbonate, represents metabolic, that is the kidneys. And the neutral point of pH is 7.40. If it is moving towards acidotic, the value will be 7.35 to 7.39. And the value moves to the alkalotic side means the range is 7.41 to 7.45. Now let us see the steps for ABG analysis. With the given lab ABG values, we have to determine the interpretation is whether normal or acidosis or alkalotic, metabolic, respiratory or combined, uncompensated, partially compensated or fully compensated. Now let us see the step 1. We have to find out whether the pH is normal or acidotic or alkalosis. First, draw the tic-tac-toe table. If the pH is 7.35 to 7.45, the value is normal. So place the pH value underneath the normal column. If the pH value is less than 7.35, it is considered as acidotic. So place the pH value under the acidosis column. If the pH value is greater than 7.45, it is considered as alkalotic. Place the pH underneath the alkalosis column. Now, with the value of PCO2, we have to determine whether it is normal or acidotic or alkalotic. Draw the table. If the PCO2 value is in the range of 35 to 45, it is considered as normal. So place the PCO2 underneath the normal column. And if the PCO2 value is greater than 45, it is considered as acidosis. So place the PCO2 underneath the acidotic column. If the PCO2 is less than 35, it is considered as alkalotic. So place the PCO2 underneath the alkalosis column. Next, we need to determine whether the bicarbonate value is normal or acidotic or alkalosis. The normal range of bicarbonate is from 22 to 26. Draw the tic-tac-toe table. If the bicarb is in the range of 22 to 26, it is considered as normal. So place the HCO3 underneath the normal column. If the bicarbonate value is less than 22, it is considered as acidotic. So place the HCO3 underneath the acidosis column. If the bicarbonate is greater than 26, place the HCO3 underneath the alkalosis column. As we already learned how to determine the values of pH, PCO2 and HCO3 to find out whether it is normal, acidotic or alkalotic, we will see some of the examples here. In this example, we have a value of pH 7.35, PCO2 of 42 and bicarbonate of 22. First, draw the tic-tac table. The value of 7.35 of pH lies in the normal range. So, place the pH underneath the normal column. The value of PCO2 is 42, which is also lies in the normal range of 35 to 45 of PCO2. So, place that value also in the normal column. HCO3 value is 22, which is also in the normal range of 22 to 26. So, place the HCO3 also underneath the normal column. Now, if we do the tic-tac-toe, we find all the three values are in the normal range. So, the interpretation will be normal. Now, let us move on to the step 2. In this, we have to find out whether the values are respiratory, metabolic or combined. If the pH is under the same column as PCO2, it is known as respiratory. And if the pH is under the same column as HCO3, it is called as metabolic. Here PCO2 represents lungs and HCO3 represents the kidneys. Now let us see how to determine the values are combined. If the pH value aligns with both PCO2 and HCO3 in the same column, it is called as combined or mixed, or otherwise called as mixed respiratory and metabolic. In this example, the pH is 7.55, PCO2 is 30, HCO3 is 29. Here, if you compare with the table given down, the pH seems to be alkalotic. So, draw the tic-tac-toe table. Since the pH of 7.55, it seems to be alkalotic, mark pH underneath the alkalosis column. PCO2 is 30, which is alkalotic, and HCO3 is 29, which is also alkalotic. So, mark both PCO2 and HCO3 underneath the alkalosis column. When you finish the tic-tac-toe table, the interpretation here will be combined respiratory and metabolic alkalosis. Let us see one more example. pH here is 7.30, PCO2 50, HCO3 of 20. When we compare with the normal range, pH of 7.30 seems to be acidotic. So, mark pH underneath the acidotic column. PCO2 is 50, which is acidotic, and HCO3 is 20, which is also acidotic. So, mark both PCO2 and HCO3 under the acidosis column. As you can see, all three values are acidotic. The interpretation will be combined respiratory and metabolic acidosis. And as the final third step, we need to determine the compensation. If PCO2 or HCO3 is normal and the pH value is abnormal, it is called uncompensated. That means the body is not attempting to correct the acid-base imbalance. As you can see, pH is abnormal, PCO2 is in the normal range. Let us see some examples. Here, pH is 7.20, which is acidotic when we compare the values with the given table. So, mark the pH under the acidosis column. PCO2 is 50, which is also acidotic. So, mark it under the acidosis column. HCO3 is 25, which is in the normal range. So, mark it under the normal column. If you see, HCO3 is normal, but the other two values are abnormal. So, the final interpretation will be uncompensated respiratory acidosis. Let us see one more example. Here, pH is 7.50, which is alkalotic when we compare with the table. So mark the pH under alkalosis column. PCO2 is 30, which is also alkalotic, so mark it under the alkalosis column. HCO3 is 25, which is in the normal range, so mark it under the normal column. Here HCO3 is normal and the other two values are abnormal. So the final interpretation will be uncompensated respiratory alkalosis. Moving on to the next example. Here pH is 7.33, which is acidotic. So mark the pH under acidosis column. PCO2 is 40, which is in the normal range, so mark it under normal column. HCO3 is 19, which is acidotic, so mark it under acidosis column. Here PCO2 is normal and the other two values are abnormal. So the final interpretation will be uncompensated metabolic acidosis. Moving on to the next example. Here pH is 7.60, which is alkalotic, so mark the pH under alkalosis column. PCO2 is 43, which is in the normal range, so mark it under the normal column. HCO3 is 30, which is alkalotic, so mark it under alkalosis column. Here PCO2 is normal and the other two values are abnormal, so the final interpretation will be uncompensated metabolic alkalosis. Now, as the part of step 3, we will determine how to find out the values are partially compensated. If all three values pH, PCO2 and HCO3 are all abnormal, it is called as partially compensated. That means the body is trying to correct the acid-base imbalance by increasing or decreasing PCO2 and HCO3 values, but still couldn't correct the pH value. Let's see one more example. Here pH is 7.50, which is alkalotic, so mark the pH under alkalosis column. PCO2 is 30, which is alkalotic, so mark it under alkalosis column. HCO3 is 21, which is acidotic, so mark it under acidosis column. Since pH is under alkalotic, it is alkalosis. PCO2 is involved under alkalosis, so it is respiratory. All the three values are abnormal, so the final interpretation will be partially compensated respiratory alkalosis. Let us see one more example. Here pH is 7.28, which is acidotic, so mark pH under acidotic column. PCO2 is 32, which is alkalotic, so mark it under alkalosis column. HCO3 is 18, which is also acidotic, so mark it under acidosis column. Here, since pH is under acidotic column, it is acidosis. HCO3 is involved, so it is metabolic. Since all the three values are abnormal, so the final interpretation will be partially compensated metabolic acidosis. We'll see one final example. Here pH is 7.47, which is alkalotic, so mark pH under alkalosis column. PCO2 is 60, which is acidotic, so mark it under acidosis column. HCO3 is 32, which is alkalotic, so mark it under alkalosis column. As you can see, pH is under alkalosis. It is alkalosis. HCO3 is involved in that row of alkalosis, so it is metabolic. Since all three values are abnormal, the final interpretation will be partially compensated metabolic alkalosis. The final step is to determine whether the values are fully compensated. If the pH is normal and the other values are abnormal, that is HCO3 and PCO2 are in alkalosis and acidosis column, it is called fully compensated. That means the body is correcting the acid-base imbalance by increasing or decreasing PCO2 and HCO3 values, and as the result the pH remains in the normal range. If it is fully compensated, next we have to find out whether it is acidotic or alkalotic. Here pH is normal, PCO2 and HCO3 are abnormal. It is called fully compensated. Now when we have a value like this, if the pH range is in between 7.35 to 7.39, then the pH is leaning towards acidosis, so it can be considered as a fully compensated acidosis. The same way, the pH is normal, the PCO2 and HCO3 values are abnormal, it is fully compensated, and the pH value is in the range of 7.41 to 7.45. The pH is leaning towards alkalosis, so it can be considered as fully compensated alkalosis. This method can be followed only if the values are considered to be in the fully compensated state. Now let us see some examples. Here pH is 7.37, which is normal, so mark pH under normal column. PCO2 is 51, which is acidotic, so mark it under acidosis column. HCO3 is 28, which is alkalotic, so mark it under alkalosis column. As we can see, here pH is normal and the other values are abnormal, so it is called fully compensated. We need to determine whether it is acidosis or alkalosis. Since the pH value is 7.37, which is sliding towards acidosis, we can interpret this as fully compensated respiratory acidosis, because it is fully compensated. The pH is in the range of 7.37. It is moving towards acidosis from the neutral point, and PCO2 is involved in the acidosis column, which represents respiratory. Let us see one more example. Here pH is 7.41, which is normal, so mark it under normal column. PCO2 is 25, which is alkalotic, so mark it under alkalosis column. HCO3 is 20, which is acidosis, so mark it under acidosis column. As we can see here, pH is normal and the other two values are abnormal. So we can conclude that it is fully compensated. Now we have to determine whether it is acidotic or alkalotic. Since the pH value of 7.41 is sliding towards alkalosis, we can interpret this as alkalotic. PCO2 is involved in the alkalotic column, so the final interpretation will be fully compensated respiratory alkalosis. In this example, the pH is 7.36, which is normal. So mark pH under normal column. PCO2 is 29, which is alkalotic. So mark it under alkalotic column. HCO3 is 15, which is acidotic. So mark it under acidosis column. As we can see, pH is normal and the other two values are abnormal. So it is fully compensated. Now we have to determine whether the pH is in acidosis or alkalosis. When you see the value of pH, which is 7.36, it is sliding towards acidosis. So since the pH is in acidosis and HCO3 is involved and it is already determined as fully compensated, the final interpretation will be fully compensated metabolic acidosis. Let us see one final example. Here pH is 7.45, which is normal, so mark the pH under normal column. PCO2 is 49, which is acidotic, so mark it under acidosis column. HCO3 is 28, which is alkalotic, so mark it under alkalosis column. As we can see here, pH is normal and the other two values are abnormal, so it is in fully compensated state. Since the pH value of 7.45 is sliding towards alkalosis, we can finally interpret it as fully compensated metabolic alkalosis. Now I think all of you were able to interpret ABG of various combinations of acid-base imbalances mentioned in the screen easily using the tic-tac-toe method. Keep practicing with more ABGs so that you will be more familiar with this method.